Okay, so a bit of a backstory to this. When this happened, I was around 13 years old and I lived in one of my county's biggest trailer parks. I had just moved there because my parents had just divorced and had got a new house. It was my mother, my younger brother, by 3 years, he was 10 at the time, and myself. He lived on top of the hill where the original park started, and there was a community park slash pool that the landlord had built for all the kids and families in the trailer park. Now that you know where the house was located, let me jump into this story. I was in 7th grade, maybe 8th grade, and I went to the local public middle school. My brother and I rode the school bus home every afternoon, and they always had the middle schoolers and high schools jam-packed together on this already stuffy bus. It always smelt like very bad BO and pot. After a few months of the same routine, I ended up joining the track team, which required me to get off at the high school, and my brother had to finish the ride home alone. The middle school track runners and the high schoolers would always run the cross-country field together, then split to their own activities. I noticed the first practice I went, we were all huddled up in the common area of the high school. To shine some light on the surroundings, there was this huge trophy case in the middle of the room, about 8 to 9 feet tall and toppling over with trophies inside. There were benches completely around it, and on all sides there were long hallways leading to classrooms. As soon as we walked through the front door of the school, the office is to the right, and there was always this real tall, lanky fellow that stood at the corner of the office. He rode my bus and lived on the next mountain over from my park, but I never spoke to him. Over the course of a few practices, he stood there and watched me every time. It kind of creeped me out some, but I thought maybe he was shy. So the next time I rode the bus home, I looked for him and sat with him. I don't remember much of the conversation, but we clicked and I found out that he had a huge crush on me, and he was just super shy, which is what I thought was going on. It made my uneasy feeling go away, but I still had a caution flag going off. He just didn't act right. But then again, it could be he had anxiety or something. So I shrugged it off and made a new friendship. Months went by and we had bus conversations. He came to my track meets, walked me to the school from the bus when I did have practice. So, of course, when I got my first cell phone, he was one of the people I immediately gave my number to. We sort of became best friends. While all this is taking place in the background, I was staying in trouble at home. Of course, I'm a hormonal teenage girl, new to the area and acting out because of my parents' divorce. So when my mother started dating and the man came home with her, I would get worse with the outbreaks. There were times I would sneak out of my bedroom window and walk down to the mountain, to the park, and swing. It would be anywhere from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. when I would do this. Eventually, my mom caught me and grounded me. Well, she took my phone and I had no way of telling my new friend, we'll call him John, that I was grounded and I couldn't speak to him. After hanging out with John a lot, I found some information on him. He's about 6'3", 150 pounds, 18 years old, and lives with his single father in a trailer. It was kind of odd, our age difference, but I didn't care. He was a good friend. My mother didn't much like me hanging out with him, but I thought it was just a typical mother saying, he's too old for you to be around. After my mother grounded me and took my phone, me and John had came up with a plan a few days later when I saw him at my next practice, that he was going to sneak over and hang out with me while my mother and her boyfriend, my now stepfather, was out. Skipping things that don't matter, like how he got in and such, he came over. All went well, nothing happened, we just watched some TV and took a nap. My mom and now stepfather came home early and I ended up sneaking him back through the way he came out. No one ever knew. It was my secret, and my neighbors. He caught me but swore not to tell. Now, things got creepy real fast. So John knew my parents, had my cell phone, and I was grounded. So I had no access to it. Didn't even know it was charged. He started texting my phone. I heard it going off in my parents' room. My mother sounded disgusted when she checked it. I was going through every scenario in my head thinking of what my mother found in those texts. Dick pics, cursing, plans on sneaking out from friends, anything. She called me to her room, and when I got there, I read some messages. They were from John, telling my parents that he wasn't a bad guy, to let me have my phone back or else it wouldn't be pretty. They couldn't keep us apart. I, of course, was terrified and said I had nothing to do with it. So I asked if I could use the phone and call him and tell him to leave me alone. They were hesitant, but agreed. I called, he answered, and I told him I didn't think it was smart for us to hang out anymore on account of his age, me being in middle school, and my parents weren't comfortable with it. He said he understood and we hung up. Then came rapid texts from John's number to my phone. They were addressed to my parents, and they read as follows. I know it was you who put her up to this. You can't keep us apart. I'm going to come in while y'all are sleeping and take her. We are going to run away and be happy forever. My mother then responded and said if he didn't stop, she was calling the police and filing a complaint, and that pissed him off even more. Being told he couldn't have me and cops would get involved. But the text stopped after a few angry ones about cops. I thought my mother had scared him off. We then got me a new phone and number the next day, and all was well. I didn't go to track practice. My family and I thought it wouldn't be safe that day, and I rode the bus home with my brother. My parents got off work at 6 p.m. and 7 p.m., so just a few hours after school, and it wasn't dark out when they got home either. Me and my brother were watching TV and putting a TV dinner in the microwave for lunch, when there was a bunch of banging on the doors. All the doors. Front, back, even the windows in the house. Like someone trying to scare us. It sounded like 10 or more people were outside running around the house just banging on the trailer and making weird noises. I called my mom and stepfather and they immediately rushed home. When they got to the front door, my mother yelled at me to come to the porch. I opened the door and what I saw I think scared me the most. My underwear. Hanging on the screen door on the chain that connected it to the house. Black and pink just hanging there with a sticky note that had a smiley face on it. So we called the police, gave a statement, and went on with our business. That night at dinner, my phone started going off again. My new one. It was John, and I hadn't given him my new number. He was threatening my parents again, told them they couldn't keep us apart, that we loved each other, we were going to be happy no matter what. Then the last text came. I'm going to tie you and your scumbag boyfriend to your bed. Make sure you're holding hands. Pour gasoline on you. And make your daughter watch while I burn the only reasons we can't be together in front of her. Then the phone went silent. We called the police. They went to his house. He wasn't there. It looked like no one had lived there in years, but I always saw him get off the bus there. The police took our statements, took the phone, and that was all. I went to school normally after that. We moved a few times, still within the district, but I never saw him at school again. It wasn't until a couple years later when I started college that I saw him again. He was in my psych class, and he was my lab partner for biology. It was like he had the same schedule as me. So I dropped out of college and went to a different one. I had told some friends what happened, and they informed me what happened to him after that night. Apparently, the night we called the cops, he split to his aunts in North Carolina and didn't come back until 2 weeks later. He was at school, but I guess avoiding me. One day after school hours, the band teacher put her hand under her desk and felt something taped to the underside of it. It was a 5-inch switchblade knife and a sticky note with a smiley face on it. The principal checked the cameras in the school and saw only one person go in and out of the band room, and that was John. through the side door that was left open. They called the cops and he was banned from the premises. I haven't really heard anything about him since, though. John, let's not meet again.